Panicus, he's a really tall guy. Obviously, needs to add weight. But what are the other things he needs to work on?
Yeah, he's a stickler right now, so he's got some work to do. But he's young. He's in Kelowna. They're going to host the Memorial Cup, so I have not seen him until today and yesterday, for that matter. But apparently he's going to be their go-to guy. So once again, with so many of these guys, it's maturity, physically grown into their bodies. But he's got a big frame, so it's just going to be a matter of time for him.
Did you have a chance to see Koivu at all over the course? I know he had kind of a tough season, mono and all that stuff, but did you get over there at any point?
I saw him last summer at the Road Junior tune-up in Plymouth, and he was really good. The game I saw, they played the Swedes, which is always a battle, and he was very good. But when I went over, he was just coming back from mono, so I got to see him skate, but it was doing laps.
Right.
You talked about Papanikis. Do you see a similar trajectory in terms of development like you saw with Tyler Thorpe on the ice today?
Well, we hope so. It's so early to predict that. We've got time, obviously, with him, but it's going to be a big year for him. As I said, with the Memorial Cup coming, he's going to be one of the focus guys. So hopefully they build a good team around him.
From a big guy, let's talk about the smaller one, LG Mooney. What about him? He's special because of his size, right?
Well, I remember last year we were talking about Lane Hudson, the jitterbug. Wow, we just saw it again. He's fun to watch, and he's going to Minnesota. Great program. He'll be with Luke Middlestat there, and Luke decided to stay another year and finish off his degree and chase a national championship. So it's a very competitive environment there. Good coach, great fan base. It's almost Canada South. It's going to be a great place for him.
Do you have a concern about his size? Like 5'7" is pretty small, right?
Yeah, well, Cole's not a giant either, so it seems like these little guys find a way. I played with a pretty good small guy in Theron Fleury. He won a cup in here.
Coughlin on the center, obviously. Is it going to be more difficult for him moving up to the pro level as a center?
Well, we'll see. We're so far away from that right now. It just time will tell. But he's pretty dynamic the last couple of days.
He's a little bit like watching Hudson play forward, maybe.
Well, exactly. I mean, those feet. He just dances.
When you look at Michael H, just how much did 1 year make a difference for him as far as the physicality, the maturity, physical maturity?
Oh, for sure. I went in and saw him quite a bit last year. Started off, just gangbusters. I think the first weekend he had 2 goals and 4 assists, something like that. Went in a couple of months later. They played Michigan State, who was a heavy team, no stars, and he got bounced around. So from the development standpoint, it was great, and he was aware of that. So he's had a really good spring. He stayed in school, went to class, and hit the weight room, and I think he's put on about 8 to 10 pounds of muscle, and so that's really going to help him.
Was there any discussion about maybe him coming faster to the AHL pro, signing pro, or do you feel how far is he maybe from?
Do you feel? We're 1 year at a time right now, so he was a freshman last year, playing against older guys. Let's give him this year. We'll see where he's at.
From a development standpoint, how much do you think, what impact do you think it had, the fact that he was clearly a target, I guess, where he was a focal point of opposing teams on that Michigan team, and what do you think maybe benefited him, hurt him from that perspective?
No, as I said to him, hey, Michael, you're an elite player. Get used to it. And the good players, the elite players, they find a way. And I'm telling you, he's a really solid young man. He takes it to heart. He really cares. And I think one thing we talked about, we had a little exit meeting with him last night, is that it's good to take it to heart, but don't let it affect your game. You know what? It's a game of failure sometimes. And
with the number of Russian players that were drafted in the last couple of years, what sort of challenge does it represent for your department to keep track of those kids and help them, in their growth?
Yeah, it has been difficult, without a doubt, with the way the situation is. But it was great having them in here. They came in early, got to know the city. I think they went up to Mont Tremblant one day and got to jump in the lake, which was really cool. So it's just been getting to know each other from their side and our side. But we still we get video. There is a language barrier. We usually have to use an interpreter, so it's a little bit more difficult. And hopefully, peace will prevail, and we all get over there to be able to see them.
What can you tell us about Kadishkov, though? I mean, based on the limited viewings and meetings, what kind of player do you have?
Well, first of all, you could just see he speaks a little bit of English, so It was impressive when he was speaking to the other Russians on the ice. He was helping to explain what the drills were. So he's a very mature young man. He was a captain 2 years ago, the youngest captain in the KHL. He carries himself like a pro. So I believe he's going to go back this year, and we'll see what happens next year. Be nice to get him over.
Do you talk to these Russian guys like as often as other guys, or do you let that to others?
Yeah, no, not as often. No. In all honesty, I wish we could, but it's just the language barrier, the distance, and all the political stuff makes it difficult.
But
There's
they may
another
last
barrier
season.
too, but Kalishnikov is playing with on a team that past Canadian members are coaching, like Igor Luanov, he's coaching over there.
Yep.
And Nikolai Abibulin too. Is it possible to speak to those guys, or?
No, we have not at this point. And coaches kind of go in and out the window pretty quick over there.
Rob,
we
Logan
know that's what
Mailloux
you're
just have a pretty good word for you after his
That's
training.
nice.
You talked with him. Can you just explain us the kind of relationship you had with him? He was very thankful for the work you put with him.
Yeah, well, it's obvious. You guys were here when he did his press conference, and he's a very sincere, good young man, and I'm happy for him. When I spoke to him the other night, I said, hey, I got traded 5 times, expanded twice. It's okay. I still got 2 cups out of it, so don't worry. And I live in St. Louis, so
Yeah.
we'll still be in touch.
Yeah, you will help him.
I'll cook him a steak.
Rob, at the end of last season, Gordon and Hughes both spoke about the importance of compete level. You get bigger when you get that. And Popanakis, when we talked to him yesterday, said you guys have sort of been drilling that into the players at this camp. What's the message you're giving these young guys about the compete level and the importance?
Did you watch the playoffs?
Yeah.
Kids?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
holy smokes, especially that final. That was, living color. And so, yes, that was a big, big part of the message. And I think the compete was very good out there today. Yesterday, it was good. We're 1 day shorter in camp than we've previously been, and I think that helped the energy level.
When you mentioned Luke Middlestad going back to try and win a championship, did you think like he could have gone on to the next step this coming season?
Yeah, I may be speaking out of turn, but we would have signed him. You know what? But he's a Minnesota guy. That Gopher program it's like the Canadians are here in Montreal. So totally respect that. I told him, when I was working with Montreal doing this, we had Ian Cole, who was one of the captains at Notre Dame, and we wanted to take him out after his junior year. And he decided, no, I want to stay, get my degree, and chase a championship. And I think Ian's got 2 cups. So it worked out okay for him. I told Luke that you're gonna be okay.
What excites you about him? Why would you jump at signing him? It just doesn't seem like the profile of.
Yeah. We had the defense meeting yesterday. I told him to stand up, and I say, guys, look, he's not 6'4", 220. Frankie and I have watched him, throughout his college career, and he just plays the game textbook. It's his angles. He's very efficient, just very smart. He's not a killer, but his coach loves him. He's consistent. We talk about consistency all the time, and he personifies that. So, and he's just a solid young man.
Going back to Mooney, what's your message to him leaving this camp, going to Minnesota?
Well, as I say, he's going in with Luke. It's a very, very competitive environment. He's going to have to earn his ice time there. So, yeah, he's very competitive. See, he took a run at Pickford there. I love that. Maybe not do it all the time. But, no, just the progression. Just continue to get stronger, get better. Make sure you do your homework so you don't get bounced. And but he's going to be fun. He's going to be fun to watch.
When you look at the talent level at development camp, it seems to fluctuate a little bit from year to year, depending. Sometimes, the higher end prospects might be later in their development, closer to the pros, whatnot. How does, the quality of the prospects might change what you choose to do, or how you might want to approach a certain development camp from 1 year to the next? Does it change anything?
Yeah. Well, this is my 11th year. No one's dropping the gloves anymore, which is a good thing. We used to go 2-a-days, and by the time we did our scrimmage, we'd have half a dozen guys injured. So it's more education. There's a lot more of that. We did a lot of classroom work this time, and as far as the talent level, it fluctuates, but they all develop at a different time. And we saw that in Laval this year. We were worried before the season, are we going to be competitive and be able to get into the playoffs? They win the conference, they win the league. And it was great, you know. 2 playoff rounds against teams that were a little bit more finesse and not as old. They hit Charlotte, they're not an NHL team, but they were experienced and they were older, and we got bounced around. So it was great. Once again, hey, you like to win, but from a development standpoint, those guys all realized they got to get in the weight room this year. Yeah, hit the ice, but you know what? They're not NHL pro strength yet.
As you said, it's your 11th year. What do you like most about your job?
Huh. What don't I like about it? It's, yeah, you know, it's, I feel blessed. It's fun. You know, I was a stockbroker for 14 years, and Sunday nights, I was miserable. I said, oh, geez, what's wrong with you? I was going to the salt mine the next day. This is hockey. And these young men, they are a delight to work with. They really are. You know what? We've gone on some jaunts here on the bus. I always wait until they get off, and they all say thank you to the bus driver. And that's not provoked. No one said to do that. And it was the same with Lavelle. I was in Charlotte with them in the playoffs. So it's pretty impressive. It's a great group to work with.
Does that speak to the points of character that Kent Hughes and the guys have put on building this team?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, we talk about culture all the time, and we're building a